Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. It's good to see you again today, and I hope that you're having a great week. I'm going to talk a little more about Samuel today, the prophet Samuel. And I started yesterday. I talked about how Hannah gave him back to the Lord after wanting a child so badly for so long. So today we have a story from the third chapter of 1 Samuel, which is really early on in the life of this young person who was become an incredible prophet for God. And I'll start reading in verse 1 of chapter 3 of 1 Samuel. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel served the Lord by assisting Eli. Now, in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare, and visions were quite uncommon. One night, Eli, who was almost blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. Suddenly, the Lord cried out, "Samuel." "Yes," Samuel replied, "it is I. What is it?" He got up and he ran to Eli. "Here I am. Did you call me?" "I didn't call you," Eli replied. "Go back to bed." And so he did. Well, let's stop here a second. Eli's an old man. Samuel's a young boy. And Samuel's just learning what it is to hear God's voice. And in this particular incident, it's bedtime, it's late, and Eli's already gone to bed, and so does Samuel. And it says here this was a time when messages from the Lord were rare and visions were quite uncommon. There were periods in the Old Testament when it seemed like God didn't speak. He was absent. There were many periods of time when it appeared that God was gone. He really wasn't, but there's no incident of something happening and him saying something. And so this happens to be one of those time periods, and it says it was really strange. So here Samuel lays down and he hears his voice, and the voice says, "Samuel," calls him out. He wakes up and he runs to Eli and he says, "What do you want? I'm here." And Eli said, "I didn't call you. Go back to bed." Well, this happens two more times, actually. Same thing, same response. "I didn't call you. Go back to bed." And then I'll pick it up here towards the end. After the third time, it says in verse 8, then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, "Go lie down, and if someone calls again, say this, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went back to bed. And the Lord came and called as before, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel replied, "Speak, your servant is listening." There's a there's a lesson here, I think, that applies to you and me. And let's take a look at Samuel and Eli's response. This voice calls Samuel, wakes him up. That's happened to you, I'm sure. It's happened to me. And you think it's something and it isn't. Then you find yourself thinking, well, what in the world? Why did that wake me up? And oftentimes, God will wake me up. I believe that's who it is and what's going on, and makes somebody's name or somebody come to mind. And I take time and pray for them. I don't know what the need is, but I figure if I woke up with them on my mind, the least I can do is ask God to watch over them and bless them. And so God calls Samuel three times. And well, out of three times, he goes and he does what he thinks is right. And Eli says, "Hey, not me. Go lay down." And then after the third time, Eli realizes that something unusual is happening here. God's speaking. So it says, you go lay down, but if you hear it again, then say, Lord, I'm listening. What do you want? It's opposed to coming to me. So in fact, that's exactly what happens. The Lord calls Samuel's name again, and he replies, speak, your servant is listening. Now, many, many times in Samuel's life, he had to listen to God for directions and for understanding and for what he was supposed to say. And I think God still speaks to us. I don't think that God's speaking is unusual. I don't think it's rare in today's world, even though I think many people would say they've never heard God speak. But yet God still tries to communicate to his creation, to you and to me. And I believe that when we get this, I don't know how to phrase it for you. For me, it's an absolute conviction this is God talking. And when I get that, I listen. So perhaps in your sleep or during your day, God will bring something to your mind that's totally unrelated to what's happening. Perhaps something comes up and you get this idea of, hey, now that's a possibility. Well, I think that's God trying to talk to you. And instead of brushing it off, boy, that was weird. Gosh, what in the world? We should listen to Samuel. We should learn from Samuel and say, okay, Lord, I'm listening. See, it's so hard to listen to God. It's easier to talk to him. We got all this stuff we want to tell him, but we don't seem to realize that he's got all this stuff he wants to tell us. Perhaps it's something like, hey, I really appreciate you, Jeffrey. Or something like, hey, don't do that. Do this. Or, hey, that's not really the right plan for you. And and many times in my life, I have thought God was going in this direction and something would happen and it would stop it. And I'd figure out, no, that really wasn't it. It was going over this direction. And so I had to change gears. But not only did I have to change gears, I had to be happy in doing what God wants. You see, here's the rub. For you and for me, doing what God wants is far more important than doing what we want. Hearing the difference is critical for walking with God. Many times I've done some things I didn't want to do, but I knew God wanted me to. It's that voice that speaks within. It's not a loud one, it's a quiet one. And if we would make time in our day on a regular basis to just sit and listen, slowly but surely, we'd hear the voice of God. Because that's what he wants. He wants to share with you. Well, you think about that. Hope you have a great rest of the day. If you have a prayer concern or some kind of a need that we might be able to help you with, call us. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow and share another part of this story with Samuel. God bless you. Take care. I'll talk to you again.